Hare Krishna. Om Gandvinandasya Ganandana Salakaya Chakshuran Militam Yana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Ayam Dadati Svapanantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhutai Madhvarema Purovibhur Nirmakshate Damashupurusha Bhungte Gana Sada Sadasatmaka Ilang Krishishta Bhagavan Vacham Sime. Hare Krishna. Introduction. I'm learning many new things about myself through the introductions I never heard before. Yesterday I heard I was born in 89 and immediately accepted Krishna consciousness after birth. That was interesting point. I'm 20. Yeah, I learned that I'm 22 years younger than I am, and Krishna conscious from birth.
We are very happy to have His Holiness Bhakti Rasayana Sagara Swami Maharaj at Shri Radhakunj Bihari Temple. I will read just brief introduction about him. His Holiness Bhakti Rasayana Sagara Swami Maharaj joined ISKCON in 1989 in the former USSR, Russia. Presently, he is based in London, UK. He is initiated by His Holiness Indradumna Swami Maharaj and has done a variety of services in ISKCON, including being temple president in Chelyabinsk, Russia between 1995 and 2005, regional secretary between 1996 and 2005, and GBC deputy for Russia between 1999 and 2003. He also organized building a temple in Chelyabinsk, Russia. He holds degree of Bhakti Shastri teacher and mediator, communicates in Russian and English. Let's welcome Maharaj at our Shri Radhakunj Bihari temple by loudly chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. His Holiness Bhakti Rasayana Sagara Goswami Maharaj ki jai.
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. So thank you very much for inviting me to your wonderful temple. And with all your blessings, we will try to read and say a few words on the subject of the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 11, which is the perfect society for social classes. And today we'll be reading texts 18 through 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
हरे कृष्णा प्रवचन का हिंदी अनुवाद मंदिर कक्ष के बाहर हो रहा है.
Will require translation or it's going simultaneous? Okay, so which text do we chant? Which one do we chant? Because there are 3 texts here. 18th. Okay. Okay, let's chant the 18th. Ritam ritambyam jiveta. Ritam ritambyam jiveta. Mritena pramritena va. Mritena pramritena va. Satyandritabhyam apiva. Satyandritabhyam apiva. Nasva britya kadachana. Nasva britya kadachana. Ritam ritabhyam jivita. Mritena pramritena va. Satyandritabhyam apiva. Nasva britya kadachana. Synonyms? Oh yeah, we'll have to read remaining verses. Ritam ucha shilam proktam amritam yat ayachitam mritam tu nitya yancha syat pramritam karshanam smritam satyandritam cha vanijam svaprittirni cha sevanam bharjayetam sadapipro Rajanyascha jugupsitam sarva vedamayo vipra sarva divamayo nripa. Synonyms: Sva amritabhyam, Rita amritabhyam, of the means of livelihood known as Rita and Amrita. Jiveta, one may live. Mritena, by the profession of Mrita. Pramritena va, or by the profession of Pramrita. Satyanrita Vyamapi, even by the profession of Satyanrita. Va, or. Na, never. Svabritya, by the profession of the dogs. Kadachana, at any time. Ritam, Rita. Uchashilam, the livelihood of collecting grains left in the field or marketplace. Proktam, it is said. Amritam, the profession of Amrita. Yat, which. Ayachitam, obtained without begging from anyone else. Mritam, the profession of Mrita. Tu, but. Nityayachna, begging grains every day from the farmers. Syat, should be. Pramritam, the Pramrita means of livelihood. Karshanam, tilling the field. Smritam, it is so remembered. Satyanritam, the occupation of Satyanrita. Cha, and. Vanijam, trade. Svabritihi, the occupation of the dogs. Nitya sevanam, the service of low persons, the Vaishyas and Shudras. Varjayet, Varjayet should give up. Tam, that, the profession of the dogs. Sada, always. Vipraha, the Brahmana. Rajanyacha, and the Kshatriya. Jugupsitam, very abominable. Sarvavedamaya, learned in all the Vedic understandings. Vipraha, the Brahmana. Sarvadeva Mayam Maya, the embodiment of all the demigods. Nripaha, the Kshatriya or king. Translation purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In time of emergency, one may accept any of the various types of professions known as Rita, Amritamrita, Pramrita, and Satyanrita, but one should not at any time accept the profession of a dog. The profession of Unchashila, collecting grains from the field, is called Rita. Collecting without begging is called Amrita. Begging grains is called Mrita. Tilling the ground is called Pramrita, and trade is called Satyanrita. Engaging in the service of low-grade persons, however, is called Svavriti, the profession of the dogs. Specifically, Brahmanas and Kshatriyas should not engage in the low and abominable service of Shudras. Brahmanas should be well acquainted with all the Vedic knowledge, and Kshatriyas should be well acquainted with the worship of demigods. Purport, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, Chaturvarnyam Maya Srishtam Gunakarmoi Bhagashaha. The four divisions of human society were created by the Supreme Lord according to the three modes of material nature and the work ascribed to them. Formerly, the principle of dividing human society into four sections, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, was strictly followed, but because of gradual neglect of the Varnashrama principles, Varna Sankara population developed, and the entire institution has now been lost. In this age of Kali, practically everyone is a Shudra, Kalau Shudra Sambhava. And finding anyone who is a Brahmana, Kshatriya or Vaishya is very difficult. Although the Krishna consciousness movement is a movement of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, it is trying to re-establish the divine Varnashrama institution, for without this division of society, there cannot be peace and prosperity anywhere. Hare Krishna. So this is very important part of Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Narad Muni is describing to Maharaj Yudhishthir how the Varnashram, Daivi Varnashram is functioning. We know that there are two types of Varnashram. One is Daiva, another one is Asura Varnashram. And Asura Varnashram is very much prominent in Kali Yuga society, wherein mundane scholars are Brahmanas of the society, and they effectively act according to what the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita describes. They are engaged in horrible work in order to destroy this world. Even though they try to improve something in this world, but all their scientific inventions are only contributing to further destruction on all levels. And I think we're all noticing that for ourselves. How many of you have noticed that the smarter your phone is, the more foolish you become? Anyone notice that? So, and because people losing natural intelligence, they now require artificial intelligence. And we can see that on physical plane also, the world is so badly destroyed by all these scientific inventions. For example, plastic, polyethylene is one of the most popular invention of the modern science. And now the world became so much polluted by that I don't know if you are aware of that, but between Japan and Hawaii, there is artificial island has been created from plastic and polyethylene. And it is larger than Hawaii, and the depth of this stack of polyethylene is 1.5 kilometers. And the problem with polyethylene that it's not decomposing, but the salty water is breaking it into minute particles, and so they call these particles microplastic. And this microplastic goes in the entire water of the world ocean, and it also gets evaporated and it gets on the land. And so basically, they didn't know what to do with this mass of plastic before because it was killing the ocean. And ocean, for your information, is the lungs of the Earth planet, because ocean is producing much more oxygen than all the trees. The weeds in the ocean, they produce most amount of oxygen. So if ocean dies, effectively we all die. So scientists were breaking their heads how to solve this problem, and now the other problem also arising from plastic appeared, microplastic. And microplastic, when it goes to the water and people drink it, it goes into their brain and it destroys brain. So, these are just a few minor examples how these smart idiots, they're destroying the world. And that's why Srila Prabhupada, he always knew that the scientists are the world, the worst culprit. And that's why he established Bhaktivedanta Institute to try to educate these idiots what is the real science and why this scientific advancement they try to push is so detrimental. And of course, you have Shudras in the guise of Brahmanas who are, so corrupt, it's unbelievable. They say that politicians and diapers have to be changed regularly for exactly same reason. And so, what to speak of Vaishyas, right, who will never stop for anything as long as they can make money. And then Shudras, who are serving all these so-called higher classes. So this is Asuric Varnashram, which destroys the world. And so Varnashram is God-given, but under the influence of Kali Yuga, it got so degraded. And so Varnashram starts with Brahmanas, because Brahmanas are educating Kshatriyas, influencing Kshatriyas, and Kshatriyas are controlling Vaishyas and Shudras, in effect. And that's why Srila Prabhupada knew what should be done. And he gave us 7 purposes of ISKCON, and I'm sure some of you, like Radhisham Prabhu, knows very well which of the 7 purposes of ISKCON is exactly corresponding to the restoration of Daivi Varnashram Dharma. So besides Radhisham Prabhu, anyone can tell us, out of the 7 purposes, which purpose is reflecting the goal of restoring Daivi Varnashram Dharma? Anyone can tell? Simple living, high thinking. Anyone? Farm communities. Partially.
Something like what you said, that to teach people to live more simpler ways of life.
That's fourth, but that's not complete picture.
Make your own food, own clothes.
That's also, just for Vaishyas and Grihastas, but there is a core, the root, and that root is very wonderfully explained in, we have another microphone? give it to Radheshyam Prabhu. He can tell us exactly what was the root purpose which highlights the importance of restoring Daiva Varnashram Dharma.
Actually, as far as I remember, if I rephrase it, to make life simpler, way of life for the practice of Krishna consciousness. Because Prabhupada always felt that the city life is very killing life. When you go to the farm, then it is more conducive for spiritual progress.
Yeah. Yeah, farms are there, but again, farms are mostly for Vaishyas and for Grihasthas. But then Varnashram Dharma is consisting of 8 elements. So actually the most important purpose is purpose number 1, which is to systematically propagate spiritual knowledge to society at large and educate all people in the techniques of spiritual life in order to check the imbalance of values and achieve real unity and peace in the world. You remember how Srila Prabhupada ends this wonderful purport? He says, last sentence of the purport, he says, Krishna consciousness movement, although the Krishna consciousness movement is a movement of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, it is trying to re-establish the divine Varnashram institution, for without this division of society there cannot be peace and prosperity anywhere. So, Srila Prabhupada was very, very focused on this. And actually it's kind of unachievable purpose, peace and unity in the world, if you think about it. But then there is this principle, if you try for unattainable, even if you fail, you will achieve so much that it will be much greater than anyone else's success. And you can see that Srila Prabhupada made this amazing purpose and he tried so hard to achieve it. And actually in the end he said, I couldn't achieve it because I didn't have enough time. I could only give spiritual knowledge and educate and train devotees. But now you have to do that. So that's Prabhupada's legacy is vast. But one of the most inspiring legacies is something he hasn't yet accomplished. And that's the first purpose of ISKCON, peace and unity in the world. And he expected us to continue working on that. But still Srila Prabhupada contributed very seriously to that purpose, not only by doing things within the ISKCON framework, but also regularly connecting with leaders in all fields and try to influence them as much as possible with the, Vedic understanding, Bhakti understanding. And one of the brightest examples, it's interesting, one devotee says that we do everything what Srila Prabhupada was doing. Like Prabhupada was chanting and worshipping the deities and distributing his books also. And so many other things. So we follow all this. But Srila Prabhupada was also very, very regularly connected with different leaders in religious field, in social field, government leaders, and we're not so actively following that Prabhupada example, connecting with different leaders in different fields, but it is very important, and one isolated example which is interesting to note is that Srila Prabhupada have met one Catholic cardinal, and he spoke to him and he preached to him, and later this cardinal became the Pope. And you can imagine. And he actually received Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, he read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, and devotees were so shocked that because in his sermons sometimes he would quote directly from Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. And there are plenty of Catholics, nearly 1 billion of Catholics on the planet. And so can you imagine, from such a height, their topmost authority is quoting directly from Prabhupada's books. And so this is the importance of preaching to the leaders, because if you influence just one person, a leader with Krishna conscious ideas, he can influence millions and billions of people with that. And so this was Prabhupada's technique, personal approach how to change the world. I mean, he was very clear that Krishna consciousness is meant not only to, create a religious organization, which ISKCON, at least externally, poses to be a religious organization, but he was actually making the point that Krishna consciousness is not a religion, but it's a spiritual science which is applicable to all people, anywhere, at all times. And so he contributed a lot, and he expected us to contribute that also to changing the world. And so it's really important to understand why did we join this movement, to change the face of the world. And it's very impressive that many Prabhupada disciples, they contribute to the same mission. And for me personally, example of Srila Radhanath Maharaj is really bright on that, in that sense, because it's easy to see what he is doing. He invested himself in attracting and training brahmanas. The whole world is going to Chaupati temple and now Pune temple also to learn so many wonderful things, how to present Krishna consciousness in attractive and clear and inspiring way. And so many wonderful devotees, excellent first-class brahmanas. And then, after doing that, Maharaj spent a lot of time doing that, training real brahmanas. And then after he accomplished that goal, he just left them to continue the work, like Radhishyam Prabhu is a very bright example of that. He got trained, now he's training so many other people, and established his own temple. And then he went on to influence Kshatriyas, speeches at British Parliament and connecting with world leaders. And then influencing Vaishyas as well, Artha Forum, one bright example, preaching to so many wealthy individuals. And of course, everybody else just follows all these leaders. So, and few days ago, when I visited Govardhanaka village, and the devotee who was giving us the tour, he was showing us different buildings. He said, this is Brahmachari headquarters, this is Sannyas headquarters, this is what we have for Vanaprasthas. So we have plenty of grihastas living here. I said, well, this is whole Varnashrama is here. So nicely established. And even this devotee was thinking, that's right. We have quarters for sannyasis, for brahmacharis, for grihastas, and for vanaprasthas. So it's really amazing. And so with because the kind of scale Kali Yuga is advancing and destroying lives and brains of so many people should make us understand that if we will not influence the world in a positive way as soon as possible, the world will just totally degrade, and it's a rush against time. And so, of course, to do that communication work, one has to be well trained and qualified, but it's something which is very important. And actually, having little experience of that, I could see how effective it is. For example, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj is another very powerful example that he's been one of the pillars of the Bhaktivedanta Institute, and also he contributed very seriously to interfaith work. And I've learned, when I was in Mayapur in 2005, because I did little bit of the interfaith, I was very impressed that so many faith leaders or rather interfaith leaders from all over the world came to Sridham Mayapur, and they had huge summit in there. And I was thinking, how did that happen? And then I learned later it was Bhakti Swarup Damodar Goswami, who was one of the founders of the United Religions Initiative, which is the world's biggest interfaith network. Used to be 108 countries, now it's much more. So many thousands of branches all over the world, or they call it chapters or circles, rather, cooperation circles, CCs. And Bhakti Swarup Damodar Goswami was one of the founders of that network. And when they started growing very dynamically, he said, they were deciding, where do we have our first World Summit? And, the proposals were maybe it should be Jerusalem, maybe it should be Mecca, some, very prominent places. Suddenly, Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj says, we should come together in Sridham Mayapur. And everyone was looking at each other. What is Sridham Mayapur? Where is Sridham Mayapur? Little village in Bengal. And so, of course, out of respect to Maharaj, they didn't argue, but they didn't take it very seriously. But somehow it happened that this tragic terrorist attack, which injured Maharaj as well, happened shortly after that, and Maharaj left his body. And for the next scheduled meeting, Maharaj was not present, and they actually held that meeting in his honor because he departed between those meetings. And suddenly they remembered this was his wish, that let's have the World Summit of URI in Sridham Mayapur. And they said, okay, to honor Maharaj, let's fulfill his desire. let's all go to Mayapur and have our, World Summit in there. So it's quite amazing that devotee is preaching while he's in this body, and he continues preaching even after the departure, and so powerfully. And so, because, Maharaj was one of the founders, they have huge respect for devotees. And this is the biggest interfaith network with a lot of connections and a lot of potential. So, devotees like Damodar Maharaj, they, gave us so much opportunities. Because there are actually plenty of, even in religious field, there are plenty of very, very friendly groups. And one example, pretty bright example for me at least, is one Christian group in Los Angeles. Radheshyam, have you been to Los Angeles? Yeah.
Mormons, not Mormons.
No, that they are called Agape Church. You been there?
I'm not yet.
If you go there, I highly recommend, because even some of Prabhupada disciples, they go there for these services to get inspiration, because their leader, he is really famous, and Michael Beckwith, Reverend Michael Beckwith, and he's very, very friendly to devotees. And this is the Christian group which Srila Prabhupada, I'm pretty sure, would define as real Christians, because for serious practitioners, they follow all four regulative principles. And, before they established their restaurant, their founder was going to Govinda's restaurant for prasadam regularly. And they are so friendly to devotees because, they accept reincarnation, they're welcoming other faiths, their purpose is pretty similar to the first purpose of ISKCON in that sense. And very, very positive. And, the leader is extremely charismatic. And he's so friendly to devotees that on regular basis he would organize Krishna Day in his church. Devotees would come, they would do kirtan, they would preach, and then he would say, okay, let's, contribute with generous donations to support them. And he would give huge donations, and this is one of the mega churches. I mean, for their Sunday, they have minimum 10,000 people, and that's Los Angeles, right? That's not India. 10,000 people minimum, and on weekday they have about 5,000 people coming together. Huge territory, and of course they contribute, and so, devotees, they chant and dance, they say something about Krishna for, an hour, they get huge donation, and he says, this is my service to Krishna. Right? And so devotees wanted to distribute books, and of course, all the people who come there, they're already open-minded and very positive. And different groups, they have their stalls to distribute whatever their books and other things. And devotees came to this reverend and they were asking, is it possible we could get our own stall? He said, why do you need the stall? The whole territory is yours. You go to anyone and distribute your books in the same way as you do on the streets. So, and of course devotees would distribute plenty of books in the territory of this church. And so, it's quite amazing that, if you make nice connections, nice, good friendship with these kind of leaders, they could open plenty of doors and they could give plenty of opportunities for our movement to grow. And so, these are few examples, few thoughts. Of course, here in Bharat, it's very easy that you have Hinduism as predominant tradition of the country, about 80% population.
About 70, 65? 80%.
About 80% of the population are Hindus, and 2/3 of the Hindus are Vaishnavas. You know, official statistics are that there are between 6 to 700 million Vaishnavas. I think this is between 60 and 70 crore Vaishnavas in Bharat alone. Of course, you know, when they count Vaishnavas, they would count Sahajayas, they would count caste Brahmanas, they would count everyone and anyone. All the Upper Sampradayas, they're also included in that, because all of them are, you know, based on, everything is based on Krishna, worshipping Krishna. And nevertheless, we know very well that, you know, so many Vaishnavas, statistically, but how many of these Vaishnavas, they even know what it means to be a Vaishnava, what to speak of following, that's another question. So there is a lot of work to be done in this country to help Vaishnavas to understand what it means to be Vaishnava. And nevertheless, because Vaishnavas are basically predominant religion in the country, you know, pretty much all the doors are open and everyone is ready to work with us. And so, we should be taking advantage of that and creating new fields. So basically, our goal should be, how do we accelerate the process of spreading Krishna consciousness? And I'm pretty sure Radheshyam Prabhu can resonate with that, because it's really important that our speed of spreading Krishna consciousness is not less than the speed of degradation in the country. Otherwise, we're going to lose the race. So that's why, it's really important to think fast how to re-establish Daiva Varnashram, at least in Bharat, because my Guru Maharaj made the point that the whole world can go to hell, but as long as in Bharat Krishna consciousness is thriving, there is no problem. You can replant Krishna consciousness from Bharat again and revive Krishna conscious development all over the world. But if something happens to Bharat, it's like the heart. Actually, someone said, kind of speculation, but interesting speculation, if the earth is a living entity, as we know, Bhumi Devi, so if you look at the continents, it's very interesting that in the center there is Bharat, and Bharat, if you look at it, shaped like a heart. So Bharat is like the heart of the planet, right? Of course, you have Russia, US, two powerful arms, etc. Probably Africa is like legs or something. But Bharat is definitely the heart of the Earth planet. And so, something can happen to other parts of the body will still function, but if something happens to the heart, that's it. And that's why Bharat is so important, right? Re-establishing and developing Krishna consciousness. And not only Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada was very clear. If you read the Bhagavatam 6.10.6 purport, Srila Prabhupada makes very, very important and powerful point. And this is in relation to Dadichi Muni sacrificing his body for as per request of demigods, after he learned that it was the desire of the Supreme Lord. And it's a pretty powerful verse. We'll read the verse and then part of the purport as well. It says, those who are too self-interested beg something from others, not knowing of others' pain. But if the beggar knew the difficulty of the giver, he would not ask for anything. Similarly, he who is able to give charity doesn't know the beggar's difficulty, for otherwise he would not refuse to give the beggar anything he might want as charity. And in the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada makes very, very powerful statements. He said, at the present moment, the entire world is in a dangerous position under the spell of godless civilization, right? The Krishna consciousness movement needs many exalted learned persons who will sacrifice their lives to revive God consciousness throughout the world. We therefore invite all men and women advanced in knowledge to join the Krishna consciousness movement and sacrifice their lives for the great cause of reviving the God consciousness in human society. It's interesting how Srila Prabhupada differentiates God consciousness and Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is for us, for Bhakti Yoga practitioners, followers of Srila Prabhupada specifically. But God consciousness is for everybody, for the whole world. And so our practice is Krishna consciousness, but what is our mission? God consciousness, right? So it's really important to understand the broader picture Srila Prabhupada shows us in his Bhaktivedanta purports and align our mission accordingly to that. So these were my few words, and Radhisham Prabhu can say something in this regard.
Very interestingly you presented, Maharaj. Thank you very much. I wanted to know two things, Maharaj. One is about what would be an ideal Daiva Varnashrama society look like, say down the line in the next 20, 30 years, some Krishna conscious devotees are working very hard. How does the ideal Daiva Varnashrama society look like, and what Prabhupada envisioned? That's one question. And then I wanted to know about yourself, what type of focus you have been keeping all this last couple of decades.
Yeah. So I think that God consciousness could be established through interfaith cooperation, because it doesn't matter which faith one follows, as long as one believes in Supreme Lord and follows four regular principles, for example. That's perfection. It doesn't matter which tradition, right? Because regular principles are the same. And if we manage to establish this network of faith leaders who have full spiritual knowledge, because it's the same really. I mean, myself, before I come from Muslim background, Islamic background, so I've read Quran, then I've read Bible, but I was not happy with very vague spiritual knowledge presented there. So I wanted something very specific, very concrete. I was so happy when I came across Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, because everything was so crystal clear. All the answers to the main questions in life are given. And but then, going back to those scriptures, then it became obvious. They speak about the same things, but it's not that specifically, not so nicely explained in there, but it's absolutely the same thing. Of course, the standards may not be that high, because, say, take meat eating, that for us it's very simple. If we want to advance spiritually, no meat, fish, eggs, nothing, right? We don't eat anyone. So, but, so many people, they are so attached to meat eating, and therefore they can only go through the gradual process. And for example, in Russia, the predominant tradition is Russian Orthodox Church, and they have, out of 365 days of a year, they have more than 200 fasting days when they cannot take any meat. So, simple thing, if all the Russian Orthodox Christians would actually follow their own scripture, they would become vegetarians long time back. Unfortunately, they don't follow. They just call themselves Christians in the same way as here in Bharat, many people call themselves Vaishnavas, but they don't follow anything. So same problem. And faith leaders are meant to educate the followers in strict following and encourage them in strict following their own scriptures. And then everybody will advance, slowly but surely. That's the idea. And devotees have, the kind of knowledge Srila Prabhupada gave us does not exist anywhere. If it exists anywhere now, it's because those people, they took it from Srila Prabhupada. Like Swami Narayan is a bright example, right? Pramukh Swami, he introduced Four Agute principles in his tradition because he learned it from ISKCON. And there are so many other examples, right? But origin of all this crystal clear knowledge and understanding and application is Prabhupada. So Prabhupada is unique, special personality. And so that's why it's really important to educate and train, all the faith leaders in understanding and following this knowledge within their tradition. And it's interesting, in Russian Orthodox Church, of course we have fanatics who hate us and who see us as greatest competitors and try to, get rid of us one way or the other. Their greatest dream is that they wake up one fine morning and there are no Hare Krishnas in Russia. But of course it's futile hope, it will never happen. But there are many, many sincere Christians, priests, and I was so amazed when I started associating with them to learn how many, not only reading Prabhupada books systematically, but chant japa as well. Many priests, they chant 16 rounds. Some even getting initiated. And it's very interesting how it goes, Some of them are very antagonistic towards us, and some of them are not just friendly, but they actually follow Srila Prabhupada. It's, in 1 week's time there is Gita Marathon starting, and devotees always want some book distribution stories. I can tell you one book distribution story if you like. So one devotee distributed books next to the church, and then outside of the church a priest is sitting with his book table with Christian books, and then he sees the devotee, and these Russian Orthodox priests, they are really big. And so he stands up and goes very fast to the devotee, and devotee is thinking, oh my God, I'm in trouble. He will give me a hard time, he will, chase me away now. So he's a little nervous because he's, walking towards the devotee very fast, and he's determined to connect with the devotee one way or the other. And then the devotee is thinking, what's coming now? And then the priest is coming close to the devotee, and he looks left and right, and he says, you have 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam with you? And devotee says, yes, I do. He said, That's good, because I finished reading 4 cantos. I was looking for 5th canto. Luckily, you came here. So quickly give me, how much do I owe you? Quickly give me the book. That's your donation. Okay, I'm going back. And then he went back, and he has like big souvenir edition of Bible, huge book. So he opens the Bible and he puts Bhagavatam inside of the Bible. And for outside people it looks like he reads Bible, but he actually reads Bhagavatam. Make sure no one, tells him anything. So like that, things like that are happening all the time. So we have friends in that area as well. And there are so many sincere and serious people in all traditions, and the more we connect with them, the more they can influence people on large scale. And I'm part of the URI network. I know the founder. I met with him, and so they open a lot of opportunities for us. And also working with government leaders, as you have experience in here, is really important. So I think by developing these 2 channels very actively, we could achieve huge goals in a very short time. I mean, UK is a very bright example. As you know, Avanti school became possible because of Hindu network, because otherwise government would never fund just us, Hare Krishnas, but because this is Hindu school connected to the network of all Hindu organizations, they gave a lot of money, etc. And now, so many children, they can take prasad, worship deities, etc., etc. So this networking gives us huge advantages, and I'm also trying to take part in that as much as I can, and try to encourage as many capable devotees as I can to join that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, for a very wonderful class. Please accept my humble obeisances. In the beginning, you mentioned about Varnashram system, and I remembered Prabhupada told in one morning walk that city life is in mode of passion and village life is in mode of goodness. And then he says brahmachari should go out in cities and preach and make devotees, and grahastha should go in villages and develop farm communities. So Maharaj, my question is, in this current day and age, when we are dealing with technology very closely, like ChatGPT and AI and everything, how do we practice what Prabhupada said? If we take it word to word, then it is impossible for us. Somebody who is aspiring for grahastha ashram, he cannot go in villages and just take up a simple job to maintain family and run the house. Then how to understand this? Hare Krishna.
Well, for grihasthas, ideal situation is not a job, but to become a leader. Because if someone is well trained in Krishna consciousness, he can look after the whole village, become like a spiritual leader in a village. And I know one devotee in Sridham Mayapur who went, actually he's not even grihastha, but he's brahmachari, but he was so inspired by the idea of making village people Krishna conscious that he went to one village near Katwa, and he took his residence there and started preaching to villages. And so many of them started chanting and following and reading Prabhupada books. So he transformed the entire village. So many people became devotees. There is one lady who started practicing Krishna consciousness, and she's 102 years old. 102. And she's still working on the field. And, she's perfectly healthy. Even her eyesight is good. The only problem is hearing. That's all. That's the only problem she has at 102 years, right, of age. and she started chanting japa, which is a huge, huge achievement. So I think this is what Srila Prabhupada would be happy to see, that devotees not just go to live in village, but to become spiritual leaders for for the entire village, and transform their whole community, make them Krishna conscious. And so if you look after people, you don't have to work. They will provide you with everything. You just have to give them time and attention and educate and train them, and that's it. And you wouldn't have to worry about anything material whatsoever.
Just Maharaj, one more point. In this city life, when we are working in 3 shifts, morning shift, evening shift, night shift, how to practice this simple living, high thinking, this principle, what we taught in this class? Hare Krishna.
Well, this is why not Srila Prabhupada, but Narad Muni highlights actually 3 times in these 3 verses, right? No profession of the dog should be taken by a Brahmana. And it's pretty clear that since, our movement is meant to educate and train people to become Brahmanas, working for someone is undesirable option. So much better is that devotees become at least self-employed. I often talk about 4 levels of work, and each next level is better than the previous one. So the worst level of work is working for someone. Then next higher level is working for yourself. Even better is working on yourself. And the best level is working for Krishna, right? So that's the ideal work. And so, even though it may not be possible to immediately go from 0 to hero, but it's a gradual process, and at least we should, fix the goal for ourselves and try to achieve this goal. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, very, very grateful to you for explaining very broad Prabhupada's desire in a very crystal clear way, connecting the first mission statement to the Daivi Varnashrama. So, I have been hearing last 7 canto from last 1 year, and I could see that Prahlad Maharaj is shouting, Kaumaram Acharit Pradnyo, and Prabhupada also is appearance to be shouting again and again in his purports. Right in the end of 10th chapter, he is writing again, Kaumaram Acharit Pradnyo, etc. And in preface also Prabhupada does write that Bhagavatam should be taught in all the schools, right in the preface when no ISKCON was there. So my question is, Maharaj, this area of Varnashrama means my limited understanding is quite unclear overall in the... So as Radheshambhu nicely asked that how this society looks like itself is a very not easy thing to look at, because it's not there in the sense of, it's there in the purports as what I understand. So my question is, Maharaj, here Prabhupada is writing, although the Krishna consciousness movement is a movement of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. So last 10-15 years I am trying to practice with struggle, but I am understanding that actually platform of Brahmana also is quite elevated platform. So how do we go closer to this in our community here, in applying these principles? Because it is not international institution of Krishna consciousness. As you said that we are known to be a religious organization, then a society of which encompasses the all public actually. So it seems that it is like an institution of hierarchy than the society where it moves very smoothly among these 4 categories. So, and Prabhupada writes at many places that one should find out whether he is Kshatriya, like here he is saying. So many places. So how do we go in this direction, Maharaj, practically in our community? That's what I wish to understand, and that's what Prabhu was also.
Yeah, I think Srila Prabhupada envisioned that not everyone will become fully practicing devotee, but we should try to encourage everybody to contribute to our mission one way or the other. For example, I have met with one devotee in Jidam Mayapur, and he is a Rajput. So he's pretty powerful. If you see Kshatriyas, you will immediately recognize they're, very stout and strong and very beautiful looking, etc., and powerful and very charismatic, right? So he's in that category. He comes from Rajput family, and he's totally sold out to Srila Prabhupada's mission. He's initiated, but nobody knows that he's initiated, even in ISKCON, because his work is outside. He has a huge army under him, and he, if required, they even kill people. Those who, kill cows, for example, etc., etc. So, and he is so powerful that even police cannot do anything against his group. Like that. And he attracts other Kshatriya descents, and he trains them up, etc. So it's real Varnashram, because Srila Prabhupada was very clear that, those who are not listening to the word, they would have to listen to this word. If someone is not listening to the word, they will have to listen to this word. Yes. Yes. Etc. If one is not impressed by Shastra, one should be impressed by Astra. Right? So, Kshatriyas are really important. It's interesting that Bhagavad Gita was not spoken to Brahmana, it was spoken to Kshatriya, because Kshatriyas are, of paramount importance, because Brahmanas, the only thing they do, sorry to say, is they collect and pass on knowledge. But those who apply that knowledge in real life are Kshatriyas. And so that's really important that, and Prabhupada is very clear that you look at the last purport in the first canto, chapter 17, I think that's text 43. He's very clear, he gives this example that Buddhism was spread because King Ashok supported Buddhism. And then he makes it very clear that there should be complete cooperation between Kshatriyas and Brahmanas for the common good. And without this cooperation, there is no philosophy or religious system which can develop. So he's very, very clear about it. And so, yes, that it's not that we have to do everything ourselves, but we have to encourage capable people, influential people, to take up to Krishna consciousness and take responsibility for establishing Varnashram Dharma. That's the idea.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, thank you for discussing about some of the very sensitive topics about how to preach the Christians community or Islam. I'm doing it for last few decades. So, US or Europe, the kind of systems or Western world, we never face some problem because the society is not that rigid. Even I try to do it few of my visits in Middle East. But India, in fact, I could able to talk to some of the Christians schools, and they could able to come to the temple, have participated in kirtan and taken prasadam. Similar thing, I'm doing it for a lot of Muslims family. The problem is internally they started following, they have become vegetarian. But the problem is society is so rigid that it is difficult for them. They are always feel threatened until unless they are really revolutionary, which are very few. So in those kind of situations, of course their concern is, unlike Western world, that even these Christians getting cremated instead of buried. But in India, Christians or Muslims, invariably they go for buried. So if they go against the society, then they have a problem of last rites. So in this kind of situations, one thing my question is that, what are the kind of destinations? Are they going to get a Gyat Sikriti that they have to come to the next life, and probably they will get a better chance for pursuing this Krishna consciousness? So this is one of the questions I had. And what are the kind of, because Islam leave aside some of the things like non-vegetarian, but they are very strict, like 5 times they are doing the namaz, and even process is like Surya Namaskar. So that is how I tried to talk to them. So what is the purifications they get it if they silently try to follow our Krishna consciousness principles?
Yeah. I'm not aware about Islam, but I know about Christianity. Srila Prabhupada made the point that perfectly practicing Christians, they go to the place in the universe where Jesus Christ is, and Jesus Christ takes them to Krishna. So, and I suppose, it's my guess or speculation, that perfectly practicing Muslims, they are taken care by Muhammad. So Muhammad takes them further. So Prabhupada was very clear, it doesn't matter which religion one is practicing. If one is very serious about one's own religion, one will become Krishna conscious at a certain point of time anyway. So we do not have to change people's tradition, we just have to encourage them to become serious about their own tradition. This was Prabhupada's point. There is no point of trying to make Vaishnavas out of Christians or Muslims, even though some will automatically want to become those who are ready. But for others, we just have to encourage them to become serious about their own tradition. I'll give you one example, because one time in Singapore, I was riding in taxi to go to the program with devotees, and I was sitting next to the driver. And I saw a Buddha statue at the, dashboard, and it had fresh flower, that statue. And I told him, that's really wonderful that you offer Buddha fresh flower. And because I was dressed like this, and some Buddhist monks, they also dressed in saffron. And so he said, are you a Buddhist monk? I said, no, I'm a Hare Krishna monk. He said, that's interesting, you belong to different religion, but you like me to, you appreciate my worship to Buddha. I said, yeah, of course. Because Buddha, it's explained in our scripture, is also the Supreme Lord, right? One of the 10 avatars, as Jayadeva Goswami explains. And then he said, that's unusual because you are so seriously practicing your faith, but you appreciate my faith. And that's very rarely happening. And he said, oftentimes I bump into some fanatics. He said, I bumped into some fanatical Christians who were preaching to me all the way that I should drop my Buddhism and become Christian. I didn't want to argue with them, I wanted to be polite, but then they decided that I accepted the sermon and I am ready to change into Christianity. And they told me, congratulations brother, now you're a Christian. And now you take this bunch of read literature and you distribute it to others, make others into Christians. I didn't want to argue with them, so they left this bunch of magazines in my car. And now I don't know what to do with it. Because I know, that's Word of God, not to be disrespected. I cannot just throw it in the garbage. But I don't want to distribute it. What do I do? And I told him, it's very simple. Just find some public place, some restaurant or something, and just leave it there. Whoever wants will take, whoever will not want will not take, so it will up to God who is interested, or what will happen to it later. At least you won't be throwing it away. So he was so happy. He said, oh my God, I carry these magazines for so many days, I don't know what to do with it. You relieved my headache. I will do that. And then he said, he developed some trust, and he said, how do I improve in my Buddhist practices? And I know very little about Buddhism, but I told him very simple thing, that you have to chant mantras with name of Buddha, because name of Buddha is very powerful. And you have to listen to classes and learn from, Buddhist scholars to understand Buddhism better. And he said, that's amazing. And, he really liked it. And when we arrived to the destination, and devotee wanted to pay, he said, no pay. I actually want to give a donation to this monk. And he pulled out $20 and he said, this is donation. It's like transcendental taxi. You take a ride and then driver pays you in the end, right? It's good taxi. So, but, it's really important to encourage people, because I had so many experiences. If people strictly follow their own tradition, in time they will automatically become devotees. It's like a fruit which is not ripened, right? If you pick this fruit up, it's useless. It's not ripened. Just leave it on the tree. Just water the tree. And the ripened fruit you can take. So that's the idea, all these traditions, they are like trees, and so many different practitioners, and some of them are ready, but some of them are not. And so that's why we have to encourage everyone to follow their tradition, and those who are ready, they will take Krishna consciousness anyway. We don't have to push. Hare Krishna. All right, I think our time is over, so thank you all very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Oh yeah, we have some Mahaprasad from Giriraj Govardhan, if anyone's interested. It says Madhurena Samapayat. The end should be sweet, so we kept some sweets for the end.